When I was a kid, I used to pay to read. I would go to one of those tiny rent-a-book shops and give the uncle money to borrow all sorts of books, like Sweet Valley High, murder mysteries, any book with a good premise. Now, if I still did that today, I would be the outlier, because now the National Library Board is going to pay us to read. 15 minutes a day will get you virtual coins that can be exchanged for cash. But why does the library have to incentivize us to read for fun? What do we lose when we no longer read, especially if we're choosing to doomscroll instead? Welcome to The Usual Place, the podcast where we have real conversations about the headlines. I'm Natasha, and to talk to me about encouraging people to become consistent readers, I have two guests, and the first one is Associate Professor Loh Chin Ee. Now, you teach English teachers at NIE, and you also research people's reading habits, and you have a number of ongoing studies, including the Reading Futures study, and what the study is so across 4 years, starting in 2025, right? So you're tracking secondary school students' print and digital reading habits. Very intense.
Thank you. Okay. Very fun, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get into it a little bit later. But I want to introduce Chris. So Chris Koh, you're the Program Director of the National Reading Movement. Now, your job is to get a vibrant reading culture going in Singapore. To me, that's really a dream job for a bookworm. So can I be you for one day?
Yes,
maybe. I'll give everybody books, like Oprah. I'll be Oprah. But okay, so I want to start the conversation talking about the cash incentive that I mentioned. So it's part of a new 5-year national reading movement called ReadSG, right? So Chris, can you tell us how ReadSG was conceptualized?
So ReadSG was started to really get people to adopt the habit of long-form reading. Specifically, we look at books, long articles. Basically, we see that could help people strengthen their focus, also strengthen their cognitive, their emotional, and their mental well-being. And we see that as an opportunity to kickstart this movement. And it's not the first time we have a reading movement. We have done Read Singapore. National Reading Movement have been happening for the past few years. So we are learning from all this movement we have done previously and introduce ReadSG as part of a habit forming behavior that we want to introduce to Singaporeans.
So what sort of books do you want people to be reading? Like fiction, non-fiction, comic can?
Comic can. No, it could be. I mean, we are not specifically identifying a certain type of book. So it could be fiction. It could be non-fiction. It could be wordless books, because wordless books, even picture books, even for adults, it could really help you to focus and look at picture. It's almost like, when you're oral, Chinese oral or English oral, and then a teacher asks you to explain what is this picture in your oral test, and then it allows the kids to focus and allow the kids to be able to articulate what is happening. I think that in terms of just reading that and a picture book and reading a text allow them to form their own perceptions and increase their critical literacy and thinking on how we see the world through text.
So I want to bring Chin Ee into this conversation, because when you heard of this movement happening, this new movement happening, what does it say about our state of reading if we have to be paid to read?
I do admit there were some surprise reactions from people that I know, but I don't really think that, in terms of the movement itself, right, that it's a part of a larger movement and there are different things that are going on. In terms of the state of reading in Singapore, I think it would be great if more people can read. That is the key thing about it. But how to encourage them to read would be the main thing. I think while in this case, maybe gamification or giving them vouchers might be a way to do it, it need not be the only way. But actually, I have to say, the National Steps movement, right? I also use the National Steps movement. And I did get a lot of vouchers out of the National Steps movement. But actually, there are different kinds of people. There are people who actually, like for me, I was going to exercise anyway. Like, I get to a particular stage in my life. I'm like, I got to stay healthy. I want to be a grandparent and see my grandkids and all that. So I ought to get started exercising. And it just happened that there was this National Steps movement. So why not? But then there might be other people who really need the incentivization. And then there are other people who will go like, National Steps movement, who cares, right? Yeah. And then there are other people who will like shake their watches to try and gain the system.
Why? Just do the steps, guys.
So I think there are different kinds of readers. And maybe this gets at certain kinds of readers, but there is a broad spectrum out there.
I'm going to turn to Chris because I want to ask are the people at the library worried about the decline in reading for pleasure? I mean, just to caveat, it's not a Singapore thing because globally, people are just not reading for fun or just reading for the sake of knowledge, right? So is the library a bit worried?
Worried. We're not worried. I mean, we're concerned because we see, enjoyment is a big part of how one sustains a habit. So we see that as an indicator of how we could make it enjoyable for people to continue or to start reading again. So reading for pleasure is one, but we are not denying the fact that reading for functional is also important. And you could get pleasure out of reading a nonfiction book. You could get pleasure from reading Atomic Habits, for example. Who knows?
Yeah. So, I mean, Chin Ee, with regards to reading practices globally, I mean, what's happening in Singapore here, like compared to the world? Like, are we reading less?
I think it's hard to know whether we're reading less or not for more than, say, 10 years, right? Because if you need to say that we are reading less than before, you really need to have some sort of concrete measurements. It has to be the same kind of measurements. But historically, if you think about it, from independence until now, there has been huge changes in Singapore in terms of the literacy rate. So actually, more people are reading than previously, say, compared to 1965, 1975. So we have definitely a more literate population reading more words. But maybe in the last 10 years, for example, in my work, I look at teenagers. So the PISA data shows that adolescents, teenagers report that they enjoy reading less than previously, than in previous years. So if you're just looking at that particular data set, it does reflect the global data where fewer teens say that they enjoy reading compared to previously.
So I'm glad you brought up the National Steps Challenge because that, as you rightly mentioned, it encourages people to clock steps no matter what their motivation is. But in a way, like walking is more approachable, I would say. Like you just walk every day. If you don't drive, most of us actually walk every day, right? So you just need to get more steps in to reach a certain goal to get the incentive, right? But reading actually kind of requires focus. So how do you get someone who has zero interest in reading to give you 15 minutes of uninterrupted focus?
I think it's quite interesting that you compared to walking because actually we all read every day on our smartphones, right? We all encounter words. Some people may not be reading books, they're reading the news or they're encountering the news through their phone. So I feel like what the I was going to say National Steps Movement, but actually I mean the National Reading Movement, I feel like the focus is on getting people to read longer and to read for a longer duration. So maybe that's the purpose, but Chris is probably the better person to talk about it. But I just want to expand on reading and kind of say that actually when it comes to reading, there are different ways of reading. So for example, we want to read because we enjoy a book. So that's reading for pleasure. We want to read because we want to learn new things, right? So we read nonfiction or we actually go online to find out more information. You know, now you can go to encyclopedias online, get information. We also read because it's interesting or out of curiosity. And we may read because we want to challenge ourselves because I'm like, okay, you know, I want to read a new kind of book. I want to improve in terms of, say, my vocabulary, or I want to improve in terms of my thinking. I want to improve in terms of seeing other perspectives. So I'm going to read a book from this other place. So really, the range of reasons for reading is actually quite wide. So when we talk about reading and thinking about encouraging reading, we need to think about these different things to target. Probably the National Reading Movement is trying to get at one of it, but there are actually many things to encourage.
So, Chris, the pitch is 15 minutes a day.
Yes.
But I'm assuming it's to build habit, right?
Yes.
Yes. But some people don't read that way. Like they might binge on a book, or it's like a Netflix drama. They just like consume it at one go, and then they take a break for weeks, and then they start on a new book. So why this emphasis on daily reading?
I'm going to talk about the National Step Challenge as well. I mean, everyone remembers I have to walk 10,000 steps a day. So it's similarly, it's a campaign. It's something easy for people to remember. We're obviously not going to penalize you if you don't read today. But but we wanted to choose something that's easy for them to remember and easy for them to kind of spare that time to read. 15 minutes a day, if you take a train to work, you'll probably be able to do that. Or, we realize that a lot of people like to read when they're in the restroom. So, these are pockets of time that's actually easily available throughout the whole day, and it's easy for people to pick it up. I thought it's a good start to get people who don't read or lapsed readers to pick it up and start and think about this through their daily lifestyle. Yeah.
I mean, Chin Ee, you research people and their reading habits, right? Will reading every day change habit, do you think?
I think it will change some habits, but there are different kinds of readers. So there are avid readers, and actually when it comes to avid readers, they are reading more than ever. If you give them a phone, they will use it to do other things, but they will also use it to borrow NLB ebooks. They will use it to read manhua, fan fiction, and the news. Then you also have those who are sort of more moderate. They don't mind reading, but they can't really find the book that they like to read. So actually for them, the strategy is about finding the book. And then some people, they kind of don't really have time to read every day. I don't know about you. Some people have it as a habit, but for other people, they may feel like, I'm so exhausted when I get home. I don't feel like reading because it's an effort. But then for these people, when they go on holidays, they might bring a book and then they do that sort of, I'm reading over the weekend kind of thing. So, but I do think that maybe 15 minutes a day can change some things and build a sort of habit. So I do research in secondary schools. And, in some of the schools, they will have silent reading periods. And last year, we did a survey. So we asked about almost 10,000 students. We asked them this open-ended question. What would you like to improve about your school reading programs? Reading programs is very vague. We leave it to them to tell us what they will. And it was quite interesting to us because quite a lot of the students actually said, can we have more reading time? I mean, some students said, please take away the reading time. but more students said, please give us more reading time. So this kind of suggests that, some students do want a space in the school day to read. And if we can have that time to read, plus help them to find a good book to read during that time, then maybe it might work. So I would say maybe the missing bit of the equation is we're asking them to read for 15 minutes, but we also then need to ask, what are they going to read during this 15 minutes? Maybe they'll need some support there if they haven't been reading for a while.
I mean, I was going to say you should send the non-readers to Chris, then you can lock them up in the library and then got all choice. Then they can find something, like bus them to the library maybe.
Possible.
But I do want to ask about the cash incentive because I think it's very fascinating that we are paying people to read, but why cash instead of vouchers or something else? Like, is cash really the best way to incentivize a habit?
So this is part of the ReadSG challenge. And the intention of the challenge is it's kind of like a habit tracker to nudge people to read more. So, and we use this crowd-task platform that is able to translate coins into cash. In fact, the amount is really small. But that's not just the only way in this challenge that we are nudging people there. So it's part of the gamification platform where we also give you XP, we provide you nudges, we provide you with tips, we provide you with fun facts when you sign up. They are able to also figure out their own personality within the quiz, the archetype quiz that we have in the challenge. So it's the cash part is just one small part of this whole thing, but might be the most attractive part for non-readers, to be honest. But and that is the main purpose. We are trying to reach out to non-readers, and they require different kind of efforts, different kind of interaction for us to get them to really start picking up that reading habit again.
So how will NLB know that the objective has worked? Is it by the number of coins redeemed? Or actually, how would you know that they really did the 15 minutes? Like they read the page?
We are not going to scrutinize whether they read the page. In terms of success factor, we are hoping to get 150,000 people to log in to the challenge and take that first step into wanting to pick up that habit. The rest we leave it to them.
Okay, well then what happens when the coins are no longer given out? Is there like a timeline for the
Oh yeah, so
giveaway?
each challenge there will be a certain period, so it'll be a 3 months period that they will go through, and then we are looking at a couple of seasons for us to push out the challenge per year, so they can continue to participate. But hopefully, we would want them to, after these 3 months, they realize the positive benefit of that, and they will continue reading on their own.
They don't need the cash anymore.
They don't need the cash. It's not a lot of cash.
I'm still exercising.
Yeah, yeah. It's still,
without the incentive.
yeah, I
Very
mean,
good.
people
You built
are
habit.
exercising on it, and they pay to go for classes. So
Yeah, so hopefully that will happen with the books, the reading movement, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm going to take some heat off Chris about the about the money, but I'm going to ask Chin Ee, because you study how young people are consuming the written word, right? So can you tell us about how their reading habits are actually shifting, perhaps as they age?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, so looking at teenagers themselves, so that's the group that I study most of all. One of the things we do see is that actually a lot of our kids, they are ambivalent. Like, actually, we ask this question, do you like reading? And then we ask, do you enjoy reading? But when you ask, do you like reading? A lot more of them like reading. But when you say, do you enjoy reading? More of them are like, maybe I don't really enjoy reading, because maybe it's the intensity of it, like it's like, I don't mind doing it. So I think what happens as they get into secondary school is, part of it is that they do have their mobile phones, more access, more screen time perhaps. And I do feel that it does contribute to them not reading as much, because it offers alternatives. When you're on the bus, previously when I was on the bus, there was nothing I could do except look out of the window or read a book, right? But now you could take up your phone, and then with your phone, there are many options. You could read, but you could also be on Instagram, you could be on TikTok, you could be playing games, you could be texting your friends. So there's a lot more options. I think the other thing we also notice is that as they get into upper secondary, because they get a lot of work, our system, and I suppose, as you get older, there are CCAs, there are friends you want to hang out with. Work is tiring, work is hard. So when they get home, they feel exhausted, they feel tired. And I have some kids telling me that, reading is kind of tiring, so they don't read during school term. These are the ones for whom, if they're readers, maybe they'll read during the holidays. And then some of them who are kind of may drop out a little bit, because they're like, I just want to relax. On one interview I had, it was quite interesting. I'm talking to this girl, and she's an avid reader. We call her an omnivorous reader because, she, it's like she reads novels, but she also reads fan fiction. She reads stuff online. So she's quite varied in her reading taste. So it was quite interesting, because she was telling me that, she doesn't read books as much this year. She still does. But she would read webtoons, and sometimes she would watch stuff as well. So I asked, and she used the word that she enjoys it. So I said, what's the difference between the enjoyment? So she said, when it's noisy in the house, she likes to be on the phone, because, she just wants to be doing something else to kind of, I suppose, drown out the other stuff. But she needs a quiet spot for reading. So reading is a different kind of enjoyment, and, the kind of long, deep reading that probably you're talking about. She wants a quiet space. She wants to read. And I suppose with the second kind of reading, although both are a form of sort of de-stress, like she can de-stress with both, but the second form of reading has the opportunity to expand her world a little bit more and to be a bit quieter. So still reading, this girl, but different ways of reading, different reasons, different purposes, and getting different things out of these different ways of reading.
So what I'm hearing from you is like, basically there's no one model of a reader, right? It could be people consume books in many, many different types of ways.
And one of the things we like to do in our research is that we stop calling the kids non-readers. We think about the kids as minimally engaged readers, because some of these minimally engaged readers, actually they read a lot when they were in primary school. Some of them, they have reading difficulties, so reading is extra effortful. So we need to take into account all these things as well. So rather than casting them as non-readers, and then, for the rest of their lives, they'll be non-readers trying, what's the point of getting back into
reading? Because it's a label, then they'll say, okay, since you say I'm a non-reader, then no need to read.
So they just need to find the right book. We need to help to match. That's at least the perspective we try to take.
So speaking of terms, Chris, you actually brought up the term lapsed reader earlier, and when we were chatting about it before the podcast, right? When and why do we see readers straying from the reading habit, perhaps when it comes to adults?
I mean, we all know why you stray. There's just so many digital distractions. The latest Netflix show, the K-drama that you wanted to chase for. Sometimes just work just bogs you down and just so tired. At the end of the day, you don't feel like reading. You just want to do something like mindless, so that's the reason why a lot of people lapse. And but we do also see that nowadays people start to realize the benefits of fitness, for example, and they're willing to put together time and effort in a week to go for yoga classes, Pilates, for example. So reading could be part of that. And reading helps you build that muscle in your brain, like how fitness helps you build yourself physically.
Actually, just to add to that, I have another study on book clubs, and it's quite amazing the number of book clubs there
Yes.
are. And very often people will say, I'm started going to the book club because I wanted to get back into reading, or I wanted to read new kinds of books, or I want to be recommended new books. So I think that's at least a positive thing for a particular demographic. They are wanting to go back into reading.
And I think the social part also helps. It makes it easier for them to come in, and they see a different side of book reading that people associate with like something that you will only do on your own in a quiet space, which is also nice. It gets you in that nice meditative state. But being with people and talk about the books and talk about what you learn or different perspective that it can generate out from that particular story, I think it brings it the fun element, the enjoyment part of reading.
But do you think book clubs are fad? Because it's like the very hip thing to do now, right? I mean, or do you think it will actually spur people to read if they see other people actively engaged, or if there's like a discussion about the book that they're reading?
I mean, it is they've been around for a while, but actually even book clubs have changed the nature of book clubs. So, we used to think about book clubs as places where you read a book and then you go and you discuss the book. But there's this new kind of book club. Well, not so new now, but the Silent Book Club. It started in 2012 in San Francisco, and there are variations of it in Singapore. So with the Silent Book Clubs, what you do is you bring your book. And it doesn't have to be a book that everybody is reading. And you go to a cafe or you go to somebody's house, you go somewhere and you sit down and you have 1 hour or a bit more and you read. So I kind of feel like the silent book clubs emerge because, as a society, and we are getting busier, so people need to find time. So that way of gathering becomes a way to find time to read. Because if I go home, I have to cook dinner. But if I go for the silent book club, I say, hello, I'm going for silent book club. I can't cook dinner tonight. So it's a way for people to just get away and read their own things. So I think you could say it's a fad, but I think it is something that will stay, and I am hopeful that it is something that will be embedded into our communities, something that's important, part of everyday life.
I mean, Chris, I want to get do you agree it's a thing to stay? Book clubs will be here to stay, or this is just something that will die down like other trends?
No, I think it will stay. I think the act of reading has evolved over the years. I think that's why the movement also shifted. The reading movement has shifted the past few years. It's really following what are people needs and wants. And I think with all the digital devices that we have, people do crave for that social element. And I think that will continue on. And being surrounded with people who likes the same thing, and you get to actually learn a lot more just from talking to people. I think that's something that will really stay on for quite a while.
I think the attraction of book clubs is you can keep what other people are reading. Then it's like,
that's true.
this book, and then you like add on to the list, right? Yeah, I think that's really cool. But we were talking about this, and a lot of people will say they're actually reading just not for fun or for the sake of knowledge, right? So daily we're reading like emails, we're reading reports, we're reading documents for work or school. And actually NLB actually did a national reading habit study in 2024, right? So they found that 89% of adults read more than once a week, but only 28% read books. That's really sad to me.
That's why we need a movement.
Well, why is that kind of reading less valuable than reading books?
I don't think it's necessarily less valuable in a sense because I think it's just a different part of your brain. And Chris mentioned earlier that you could be reading for work and it would still be pleasurable because, you know, you're doing a job. I mean, like her job is dream job, right? Then she read books all the time and of course it's pleasurable. Then she's just, that's just my KPI.
You
I'm
can
reading
say,
a book.
don't talk to me, I'm reading a book for work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but then, you know, there are particular jobs where in a sense, there is deep engagement with text all the time. So just take myself as an example. I'm reading, in fact, you know, I think about a book I read recently. It was about book clubs. It was a research book, but it was so fascinating to me. But then it is impossible for me to read a fiction book when I am not on holiday, if it's not a young adult novel or it's not a book of poetry, because on a daily work day, I just feel like I'm up to here. I cannot concentrate. So, you know, you will often find me holding like a singlet book. I remember one very memorable trip was I read The Great Reclamation by Rachel Heng on the flight from Singapore to Taipei. And I really enjoyed myself because I'm on the plane. I can't do any work. I don't really want to watch anything, but I have that devoted time to reading. So like the brain is compartmentalized. But then on the other hand, there are some folks for whom, in a sense, their daily job may not require this sorts of reading. And maybe that other forms of reading, it would be good to do more of these sorts of reading to engage their mind as well. So I do think functional reading is not so bad, but we do need to put time for other types of reading, not just enjoyment, but reading to learn, reading for curiosity. Okay, so interesting thing is, I have another study. Sorry, I'm just inundating you with my studies. This is an old study, it's closed, but we were analyzing the data. We were looking at how Singaporeans learned to read across the different generations. And this is the particular data set we were looking at was young adults. Like young adults could be up to 35, you know. But a lot of them told us they started reading nonfiction more because they started feeling like they want to learn more about the world, and it gives them information and they can see things differently, and it contributes to their job. Like, you know, they may be a chef or a gardener and they read nonfiction and it helps them to deepen their expertise. And for some of them, they're still reading fiction. It's just that it has shifted their reading habits and practices. So I think we need to give room for those sorts of changes.
I think some people watching this might be like, are y'all like just going on and on? If I don't want to read, you know, but we need to answer this question about what do we lose when we don't read books?
I think we lose focus. That's one thing we're trying to get back. In our chat, we talk about how it's very hard for people to really just sit down. Even the earlier chat, it's just hard for people to be detached from their digital devices and just focus on one thing. And even sometimes I think, even when I'm watching a YouTube clip, I speed it up to like 1.25 just to get it through really fast. So we really think that just pausing and take that 15 minutes to read will slowly help you regain your focus, and that helps you in your cognitive. I talked earlier about your cognitive well-being. That helps you to think and understand a little bit more, and then really slow down. And it's really good for your own well-being as well. So, and that 15 minutes allows you to be in that flow state. I was earlier I was referring to exercising, how you need to warm up for like 5 to 10 minutes. And after that, that's when you start to burn your fats. And we really want to reach that stage where you get to see the benefits of burning your excess fats that you don't need and allow you to focus.
Yeah, I think also the idea of deep reading, I think the problem is if you think about like, I mean, of course, we are reading a lot of words. We could be reading a lot of articles and, you know, there are these fleeting moments, you're moving in and out of the information. But when you're reading a book, you're actually engaging with somebody's deep thought. And, you know, you pause, you think, and then you can consider, is this correct? Do I agree? Do I disagree? So there is that value in deep reading. I know we are all about speed here, you know, use AI, summarize everything, then we get the gist of it. But then there is value in training the brain to think, to question. And the deep reading is the bit that helps you with training that bit of the brain.
Actually, I'm curious because you study kids and their reading habits. Do you actually see a difference between kids who read and kids who don't?
I mean, other than enjoyment, there are studies that actually talk about kids who read. So not from my own research, but these are large scale studies that actually look at kids who read a lot when they're younger or who enjoy reading. And they do show that there's an association in terms of reading proficiency, in terms of their academic achievement, digital proficiency, because if your foundational reading is good, it actually provides certain skills for when you're going online and learning to manage stuff, and even well-being. So there was a large scale study that looked at kids' brains, and they found that kids who read more when they were younger actually did better in terms of the well-being scores. Yeah.
I mean, I want to turn to Chris and ask you about whether. So we're hearing a lot about different readers, different types of readers, different readers as they grow up.
Yes.
Is it possible to have a national strategy that caters to all?
That's what we're trying to do. So all this while, I think NLBA has been very strong in trying to see how we can reach out to people from the different life stages. But for this movement specifically, we wanted to dive in a little bit deeper. And we know that each life stage, for children, for adults, for youth, for seniors, there are also different readers' archetypes. And each one will need a different strategy or different way to reach out to them. So the ReadSG challenge is just one of the many ways we try to do that. And we, for children, we would have to work closely with MOE. So we were working with a few partners, major partners, and we are also working with organization like KPMG to reach out to working adults as well. So different ways, and we have 5 years to tackle this problem. So I have a job for the next 5 years at least.
Is there like a KPI that you have to beat by the end of like every year?
Every initiative will have their own KPI, but what we want to see eventually for the movements is to see the increase in number of people reading and adopting this habit. I think that's the main thing we're trying to see.
So I'm very curious because you have the details. What are
Yes.
people actually reading today? Like, what are the most borrowed books in the library over the past year?
It will be interesting for you to know that the top physical book borrowed is True Singapore Ghost Story.
By Russell
Yes,
Yee?
yes. And it correlates with the National Reading Habit Study, because people talk about how they enjoy thriller, horror, mystery books. So that's the top books. And for children, is Geronimo Stilton, and it has been that for many years. So it's quite interesting to see how it's continued to be so popular. But yeah, True Singapore Ghost Story, because it's short story and it's so exciting. It's easy to pick up and it's easy to read and go through many volumes of that at one time.
I know. He's a ghostwriter, right?
Yes.
Yeah. My mind was blown when I found out that it wasn't one person writing it. But then also I shouldn't be surprised that it's a top book because Singaporeans are obsessed with ghosts.
That's true.
Okay. So I'm going to end off by asking, I mean, we've already pre-planned this, but I want to know what are some of your favorite books. So if you can tell me what you're currently reading or what is your favorite book. What did you bring for us today? Let's start with you, Chin Ee.
Okay, I think I'm supposed to distribute the books
that's
now.
mine.
So,
Yes.
here you are. So I brought 2 books. It was really quite difficult to think about my favorite books because I have different favorite books at different stages. But I thought I'll bring The Complete Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Okay, this is a hard copy. And it's got illustrated pictures, and all 7 books are here. So obviously I can't read it this way. But when I was younger, it was in these thinner books, and my kids have it. So my kids have read it, and I've listened to the audio version as we kind of drove around. They used to go to school at NTU when they were in preschool. So every trip we will drive and listen to audiobooks. So we listen
Nice.
to this as well. Though I think that for kids today, they might be more familiar with Percy Jackson. I suspect that will be what
It's their
they would
modern, today equivalent.
equivalent of fantasy. The other book I brought, you asked for a book recommendation, was Bang My Car. It's Bang My Car by my colleague Ann Ang. It's all written in Singlish. And I can say it worked because I recommended it to my husband and he's reading it and he's enjoying it. It's very short too, but it's very funny.
Okay. Is he not a reader?
He is a reader. So, but I was like, you should read this book from my colleague. It's quite funny.
Fun
Yeah.
read. Okay, very good recommendation. Chris, what do you have for us?
So it's interesting. So the question you asked, what would we recommend people to read if they want to start reading again? Also a singlet book, Ministry of Moral Panic by Amanda Lico. It's also because it's a collection of short story and it's really quite easy to read. You can finish one story in 15 minutes. And I think it's very relatable. The language with Singlish, I think so it's easy and it's fun to read. So this is something I would recommend for someone to pick up. And obviously it's a very old copy, as you can see here. And picking my favorite book, that's very difficult. It's like asking me who's my favorite child. So I'll share what I'm currently reading. And I'm trying to do my focus reading with this Chinese copy. It's called Taiwan Man Yu Lu, which is Taiwan Travelogue, which is the current International Booker Prize Award winner that talks about, I like books that talks about food. So it talks about this author, a Japanese novelist who is traveling to Taiwan. And she met this interpreter and both of them love food, and they were and the interpreter, who is a Taiwanese, has been introducing her to all the different types of food in Taiwan. So you can see there are pictures of food there right at the back. So I think that's what keeps me going. Yes.
Love after ghosts.
After ghosts is food. So that's what I'm trying to do and trying to be very focused in reading the Chinese characters in this book as well.
All right. So okay, my recommendation is this book called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. Since we are all talking about mental health, it's about a therapist who has to go to a therapist, but she's also writing about her clients, and they all have. I love this book a lot because it shows you the human spirit and the things that people go through is kind of common. So I believe it's in the library somewhere.
It is.
Is it a biography?
Yes, it's a personal memoir, right?
Which is also very well liked by teenagers.
Well, like in
It's
fact,
a serious non-fiction story.
We did invite her for a talk in the library. It's an online talk.
Oh, okay. I was like, is she here? Okay, I'm very
she's not
excited. Very
here.
excited. Okay, but this is my pick, and it's a very easy read because it's a personal, it's like a diary kind of thing. Yeah. So I want to thank you both for being here because I think you've given us a lot. I mean, we've spent 30 minutes talking about reading, so clearly there's a lot to talk about. But Chin Ee, the future might not be so bleak because from what we hear from you that young people say they like to read, but we need to find ways to encourage them to enjoy reading so that it doesn't seem like quite daunting. And Chris, I hope the takeaway is not the money from the National Reading Program, but as you said, reading is like exercise and it's important to help us read. It's important to read to help us slow down our fast-paced life and improve our well-being and cognitive thinking. But
that's right.
If I can give you a suggestion to improve the program, maybe since there are book clubs, can we get more coins if we read with friends?
Group read.
Yeah,
like
they
group
get
buy.
more coins. But
I'll think about it.
okay. So have a think about it. But thank you very much for being here today. And that's it from the usual place. Now, I hope this episode encourages you to pick up a book and not just for the money. And if you do, drop me a note about which book you're reading in the comment section on YouTube, Spotify, or Instagram and tell me what you like about it. And if you like this episode, do share it with someone else. I will see you next Thursday.